Thanks for staying with us on Point. Sanlam and Brand Atlas have done a survey that showed that over 50% of South Africans do not have a will. We are in Wills Week, which runs from the 13th to the 17th of September now. Moremadi Mabule, who is the head of wills operations at Sanlam Trust, joins me now. Very good afternoon to you. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News. Tell us about the methodology behind the survey.
So the methodology, thank you so much for the invite. The methodology behind the survey was just to see, there was a lot of marketing that we did, and we also wanted to see if, COVID had an impact in terms of, death now being something that is so, close to us. What methodology we used, we actually went out and we did the survey online, and we asked people a couple of questions like, do you know what is a will? Do you have a will? When was the last time you reviewed it? And if you don't have a will, why? And those are the methodologies and the questions that we actually posed. And the respondents were about 1,140. What is interesting is the responses come from people from the age of 16 up to 50 plus. So it's quite a nice, it covers quite a nice sampling, and we're quite comfortable to say at least 54% of those people, still don't have wills.
All right. What was the most glaring fact that came out from the information that you collated?
So one of the glaring factors were three issues that came out. The reasons why people don't have wills. People still are saying, you know what, I don't have a reason to have one because I don't have enough. But however, we've seen a psychological change in that mindset, particularly in the lower income bracket and the black middle class. So that was quite clear that it's coming through. The reasons why the black middle class are drafting wills was also interesting to observe, is to have some form of control over the assets that they've accumulated. They wanted to have control and they wanted to ensure that it goes into the right hands. Another glaring factor that was interesting, you see in the 50 plus white males, their reasons for drawing up wills were more around it being tax efficient. So you can see that, it's different themes that are pulling through out of the sample.
All right, let's stay with themes. Are there certain themes or trends that you see within perhaps income groups?
Yes, definitely. We are seeing that the black middle class is definitely growing. And when you look at where they are actually drafting their wills, most of them are drafting them through the banks. And there is somehow you can make some form of a correlation that, okay, because they are probably acquiring assets, they're getting bonds and stuff like that, meaning somehow the conversation around the will and the liquidity in terms of the life cover are actually happening in those spaces. So I think that's what we're picking up.
Let's stay with women and gender. 46% of women surveyed said they had wills compared to 54% of men.
Yes, it's very interesting. When you look at women, in the 1,140 women, some people that responded, it was a 50-50 split, gender-based. When you look at what concerns women, it's the control and making sure that it ends in the right place. Finding that the control part is quite important, and somehow, if I've been based on what we work on a daily basis, we look at what is most interesting is marital regimes. Because now women are finding themselves that now they are also growing and are accumulating wealth, and they are married, and maybe now they are starting to understand their marital regime, what it means, then, this thing is starting to be a hot topic for them.
All right, one of the points that you raised earlier on is some people don't believe that they have enough to have a will. What advice would you give to them and anybody else perhaps watching now about wills?
Yes, I always talk about what is in the Wills Act, and the Wills Act does not put any form of, income or economic status to who needs to get to draft a will. The Act says anybody who's above the age of 16 can draw up a will. So I always say, you know what, at any given time, you never know. You might have an inheritance coming your way, and you are at the age of 18. All of a sudden, you've got this money and you pass away, and what happens? You haven't planned for it. I always say it doesn't also have to be, wealth. A lot of wealth. It's not for the wealthy. It's for everyone. And one thing that we are also trying to, see is the winding up of the deceased estate process. Make it smooth and simple. When you draw up a will, you get to nominate an executor, you get to nominate a guardian for your minor children. And you also get to look at things that we call liquidity, which is there enough money in the estate to cover all your expenses? And this is the advice that I would give people. If there's one thing that I always want to leave with people is that when you go and you engage your financial advisor, one of the things that you need to look at, there can't be a financial plan without an estate plan. These things, they work hand in hand. And last advice that I would give people is that just make sure your beneficiary nomination forms in your pension monies, and the beneficiary nomination form for your life cover and your monies that are falling into your estate, whatever that is in your estate, they are always relevant, they are always present, they are always up to date. COVID has taught us that anybody can pass away.
Moremadi Mabule, Head of Wills Operations at Sanlam Trust, joining me there via Zoom. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News this afternoon. Now,